May was a month full of amazing books and me finally getting into audiobooks, so I guess I have plenty to celebrate. But I also decided to enter 2 reading challenges, so if you notice different nail designs throughout the video, that's because I filmed this big boy throughout the whole month. Anyway, this video is quite lengthy, so I really hope you enjoy it. Hi, I'm Juliana and welcome back to our video, and today we are updating my reading journal with the books I read in May. So we are first starting with the reading challenges and then I'm going back to do the monthly cover spread. So the first reading challenge I entered was Adventures in Aeldia. It's hosted by G from Book Roast, and no, this is not a May challenge, it's actually a year-long challenge. And you may be thinking, why am I doing a spread for it now instead on the yearly spreads? Well, that's a funny story because I actually intended to enter the spring equinox in the magical readathon, also by Book Roast, but I don't know how, but I missed the date, so I was too late for it. But then I discovered this Adventures in Aeldia challenge that is kinda related to the magical readathon, but you can do it separately from it. So I just saw if any of the books I read from January until now would fit the prompts, and they actually did. So I decided to enter this reading challenge in May and continue on. So this is basically a choose your own adventure challenge. You start in the middle of this map and then you know your next prompt by choosing a path to follow. And in December you are going to end up in one of these 4 areas of the map. I'm pretty sure I'm going to end up on the right area of the map because of the path I'm following, but you can see my prompts later when I put them inside this little flip out of the map. And talking about maps, I'm covering the inside with this washi tape because I just wanted a nice base/background for the prompts to sit on, and I think it looks amazing when you open the map. So I wrote the prompts from the path that I'm following on Canva, and then I just put them inside rectangles and I printed them on sticker paper to be able to put them in here. So inside the map we are going to have my adventure from start to finish, and outside on either side of the map I'm putting the book covers for the prompts of each month. For example, in May I had to choose between 2 paths, one to the left and one to the right, so they would lead me to different prompts. And I chose the one on the right that was reading a book with a dancer or dance is a main part of the book. And the book I chose for this one was Powerless by Elsie Silver, because the main character is a dancer. I also made these little banners for each month to put on top of each prompt because I thought it would fit the adventure vibe and the map itself. I'm only putting the rectangles until May because I still don't know my next prompts, so when the time comes I will put them in here. And to finish the inside, I just did a dashed line with a brown acrylic marker from month to month, just because I feel like it looks very cute. And that's it for this part. So now I just have to put the book covers on the outside. So for my January prompt, I had to read a book published in 2024, so I chose God of War by Rina Kent from my January books. For February, I had to read a book from my top shelf, and I chose Terror at the Gates by Scarlett St. Clair. For March, it was a thriller, and I chose Tourist Season by Brian Weaver. April, I had to read a book just in the AM hours, and I actually accomplished that with Fatal Collision by Arlie Beck because it was a very short book. And again for May, it had to contain a dancer or dance as a main part of the story, so I chose Powerless by Elsie Silver. And now let's move on to the next reading challenge, that is the Goober Readathon, hosted by Goobers Who Read, and that includes Jashi Karin. And this one is a monthly challenge. This one is related to the Year of Goober, which is a yearly challenge that I'm also part of, but you could do this one separately. So the story of this challenge is that we have to help little ghosty Goober studying cooking. So you have part A, that is cooking concepts, and you had to choose one of the 6 concepts or do all of them, and each one has 3 prompts that you had to complete in order before moving on to the next if you want. And part B is hosting, and you have 3 concepts with 3 prompts each, and on this one you can complete in any order you want. So I completed the 3 prompts from Kitchen Basics from part A, and I completed the main course for the set menu concept from part B. So in the end, I ended up with 10 points, which means I'm a phantom foodie. To decorate this spread, I knew I wanted a page just for the prompts for the challenge and also the tiers, so I printed them quite big, and around it I filled every space with my bookshelves washi tape that I believe it's from Paper Monogatari. Oh, also, everything that I'm using is going to be linked down below in the description, at least everything that I can link you to, and also my discount codes for some brands if you are interested in getting anything. For the right page, I'm putting the title that I made in this roll of dot grid prom paper that has a sticky back. This one is from Journal Say, and I just stamped the letters in this font in brown, and I also wrote Readathon in my usual lettering style but in green, and I chose to do this because it would make a great contrast between the 2 fonts and the colors look very good and within the color palette for this spread. I had this fun green paper full of vegetables that I used before in my March reading journal updates, and I think it goes really well with the theme of this challenge, that is cooking. And I also decided to print the Ghosty Goober because he's the mascot, and to also fit the theme I used some spooky cookies that are from an Halloween PET tape from the washi tape shop. So if you are wondering where I got the prompts, the Ghosty Goober and all these challenge specific things, they are from a folder that Jashi Karin has on Google Drive, so you can just access the folder, download the things you want and print them. I think she has the link on the video she made for this specific challenge, so I will link it down below as well. So for Kitchen Basics, I read The Serpent and Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent for the prompt A Book You Think You Like, One Dark Window by Rachel Gillick for the prompt Plan to Read This Year, and Two Twisted Crowns also by Rachel Gillick for the prompt Newly Acquired Book. Then for Set Menu in part B, I completed the second prompt, that is read a book from Two Hostess TBR, and I read Love Me Stalk Me by Laura Bishop, that is from Rachel's TBR, and Book Lovers by Emily Henry, that is from Jessie's TBR. Then to finish this spread, I just decided to color in the little icons for the 2 concepts and also my tier in the bottom, that is Phantom Foodie. And with that, the 2 reading challenges spreads are complete, so we are actually going back now, these 2 spreads, and make the monthly cover spread. This one is going to be Cherry Blossoms, but it's going to be different from the theme I made in my bullet journal, because this one is going to be made with the stationery that I initially thought of using in that theme. This one is a PET tape from the washi tape shop, and it has a very cutesy style that I usually don't use a lot, but it's not overly cute, you know, and I really like the designs on the tape, so I decided to use the little landscapes on the cover page, and to complement them, I'm also using a cherry blossom washi tape from EB. I don't have cherry blossom stickers, I used the ones I had in my May theme, so I just cut around the washi tape and made it look like stickers. As I said previously, this was a theme that I intended on doing in my bullet journal, but I just couldn't find layouts that I liked and that would look good with this PET tape, so I actually put the designs that I cut from that tape on my sticker release book, and instead of just leaving them there until someday, I decided to use them in the reading journal since I don't have to do layouts, I can just do things freely. Then I tried to use the letter washi tape that came in the same set as the cherry blossom tape from EB, but it was a little too much with the rest of the decoration, so I took it off and stamped the title with my usual alphabet stamps. Now for the left page, I usually decorate the borders and leave the middle mostly empty, or at least just lightly decorated, because I put my monthly reads on this page. So to start, I just put the cherry blossom tape all around the page, and I didn't even bother to cut around the edges because they were almost invisible anyway. And then on the bottom, I just put some more designs from the PET tape, and I tried to not go too overboard with the decoration because the washi tape was already quite busy on itself. So, as I mentioned while I was doing the spreads for the reading challenges, this month I read the Sheperd King Duet, that is One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. The first book I gave 4.5 stars, and the second I gave 5 stars. Then I read Powerless by Elsie Silver, and I gave it 4.5 stars. Then we have Book Lovers by Emily Henry, which I gave 4 stars. The Serpent and Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent, I gave 4 stars as well. And finally, I read Love Me Stalk Me by Laura Bishop, and I gave it 4.5 stars. So as you can see, it was a very good reading month for me. Every book was 4 stars or above that, and we love to see it, especially because some months are not that good. With the monthly cover spread and the reading challenges done, we can now move on to the book reviews. And we are going to start with a full spread for the Sheperd King Duet. This story takes place in the kingdom of Plunder that is currently cut off from the rest of the world because of a mysterious mist, and everyone that enters this mist without a charm will vanish. But that isn't the only problem with this kingdom, because aside from the mist, there are some Providence cards that have magical powers, and the legend says that when the full deck is completed, the mist will disappear. So every king for the last 500 years all had the same goal, completing the deck and lift the mist. And that is where we meet Elspeth. She's a woman with a very dark secret, and she needs more than luck to stay safe in this kingdom. She needs a monster, and she doesn't have to look too far because she has one trapped in her head. She calls him Nightmare, and he keeps her safe, lends his power to her, and keeps her secrets. But nothing comes for free, especially magic. So when Elspeth meets a mysterious highwayman on the forest road, her life takes a drastic turn. She joins a dangerous quest to cure the kingdom of the dark magic infecting it. But the highwayman just so happens to be the king's own nephew, captain of the Destriers, and guilty of high treason. He and Elspeth have until solstice to gather 12 Providence cards, the keys to the cure. But as the stakes get higher and higher, Elspeth is forced to face her darkest secret yet, that the nightmare is slowly taking over her mind, and she might not be able to stop him. So that is the premise of the first book. Of course, I can't say more, otherwise it would be spoilers, and I also can't say anything about the second book. But I loved the story. Elspeth was such a good main character, but my favorite was Nightmare for sure. He was just a very complex and morally grey character. And also, the two characters that I hated in the first book become my favorites in the second, so applause to character development. It had some very dark moments, but I think it was honestly amazing and very important to the story. The unique magic system was very interesting, and all the story behind it was just so complex and detailed, and I really loved it. The world building wasn't too much, you had just the perfect amount of information to understand what's going on, and my favorite quote of the two books was, "The two were together, so the two were the same. The girl, the king, and the monster they became." It just stuck with me and it makes sense to the story, so I made sure to include it right in the middle. For the decoration of this spread, I printed the cover of Two Twisted Crowns that had this girl in the middle, which I think it's Elspeth, and I just made her bigger. Then I used the sticker of a monster from a sticker book to represent Nightmare. The window is actually a very important part of the story, so I had to put it in here as well. And then on the bottom I put two tarot cards from a washi tape to represent the Providence cards, and the twigs and the black mist around it is to represent the forest and of course the mist. I also put these ornate corners on the spread. Two of them are gold to represent the corners that the book cover of One Dark Window has, and on the right I put the same dark corners but with a slightly different design, because the book cover of Two Twisted Crowns has red corners, but since I didn't have any red, I decided to use a similar design to the ones on the book cover. And this is just a way to make the spread feel cohesive, but still kind of distinct to represent both books. Then to finish the spread, I decided to connect the ornate corners with the line that I made with my gold pen. I think it just looks better this way, and the corners are no longer just floating on the page, they are actually connected to something. Next we have Powerless. So this is the third book in the Chestnut Springs, and I only read the first one, that it's I think Flawless. I still have to read the second one, but since I needed this book for the Adventures in Aeldia challenge, I decided to just read this one first. So Powerless follows the story of Jasper and Sloane. Sloane is a girl that seemingly has everything that money can buy, good parents, and an amazing fiancé. But deep down, not everything is as it seems, and everything comes crashing down on her wedding day. And the man that rescues her? Well, that's Jasper, the hockey player and childhood friend that Sloane's been in love with her whole life. So, to get away from everything and to resolve some issues, they go on this impromptu road trip, and everything's fine. After all, Sloane has been living on the friend zone for years now. But then Jasper starts to act like he wants her, and Sloane is going to need him to prove it. I usually don't read a lot of friends to lovers, I just prefer the rivals or enemies to lovers trope, but when it's done right, friends to lovers can give you an amazing story, and this book was so good. I instantly loved both characters. Jasper is just the dream guy, he's a walking green flag all the way, and Sloane is just so mature and loving. I wish that she would speak more for herself, like, get angry, girl, and she did in some situations. Her father is the worst, her fiancé is the worst, but thankfully her mother isn't. I really loved the interactions and the tension between Jasper and Sloane. I was listening to the audiobook, and that was this scene on the truck, I think, that made me blush. Like, I was just smiling all the way. It was just amazing. Jasper doesn't talk very much, so that's sometimes a bad thing for some situations and arguments that he doesn't seem to understand, but overall it was a very good book. So if you like Grumpy versus Sunshine, Hockey Player versus Ballerina, and Friends to Lovers in a Small Town, this is for you. Oh, and one thing that I really enjoyed is that you get right into their story. You don't spend chapters upon chapters of just investment and context in Sloane's relationship with her fiancé. You just get right to the point, and I really liked it. Just give us the context and the information we needed to understand her point, and then let's move on. And then the quote I chose for this one was, "None of that matters, because we're me and you. We're us, unlikely and inevitable all at once. We're forever." Moving on to the next page, we are doing book lovers. So this book follows the story of Nora and Charlie. Nora's life is books, as a literary agent, and she can say for sure that she is definitely not that type of heroine. She's not the laid-back girl, the sunshine in someone's life, and surely she's not the cutesy and charming main character. She only has space in her life for two things: her little sister Libby and her clients. So when Libby convinces Nora to go on a sister's trip away to Sunshine Falls for a month in the middle of nowhere, Nora is a little wary. But Libby really wants Nora to see the appeal of a small town and become the heroine in her own story. So she agrees. But what Nora least expected is to keep running into Charlie Lastra, a bookish brooding editor from back in the city, and their meetings are not cute at all. And if Nora isn't the ideal heroine, Charlie is not the hero for sure. But they eventually decide that to overcome an unexpected situation at work, they have to work together and put their differences and personalities aside. I mean, it's not like they are the main characters and they will fall in love, right? That would be a cliché for sure. Sometimes I relate to some characters at some level, but I think Nora is the top one for me. She and I have some similar personality traits, and just like her, I don't show a lot of emotions, I don't attach very quickly, so I think that's why I really connected with her, especially because of some conversation that she has. Charlie was very cute. He's not my type of guy, but he's really good for Nora. And I don't think this is a popular opinion on this book, but I hated Libby. I think she's very selfish and ungrateful. At the start, I really liked her actually, but throughout the book, I began to not really like her. And then towards the end, I just was annoyed when she was around. One thing I didn't expect to like, but I did, was the ending. I think it was very real, because, not every story ends with everyone happy, But don't misunderstand, this has an happy ending, but to reach it, you have to solve some problems, and that's life. And yes, that's an X instead of a K in the title, because my sticker letters for some reason didn't have a K, so I had to improvise. And then for the quote, I chose, "Those were the endings I found solace in. The ones that said, yes, you have lost something, but maybe someday you'll find something too." And I think this is the best quote to define Nora and how she sees herself. Let's continue on to the next spread, and this one is going to be so much different in aesthetic to the last one. And the first book we're doing is The Serpent and the Wings of Night. This is a tough one to explain in general because of some words and the story itself, so I'm going to read the summary and then tell you my thoughts. For humans and vampires, the rules of survival are the same. Never trust, never wield, and always guard your heart. The adopted human daughter of the Nightborn vampire king, Aeldia carved her place in a world designed to kill her. Her only chance to become something more than prey is to entering the Kajari, a legendary tournament held by the goddess of death herself. But winning won't be easy amongst the most vicious warriors from all three vampire houses. So, to survive, Aeldia is forced to make an alliance with a mysterious rival. Everything about Rain is dangerous. He is a ruthless vampire, an efficient killer, an enemy to her father's crown, and her greatest competition. Yet, what terrifies Aeldia most of all is that she finds herself oddly drawn to him. But there's no room for compassion in the Kajari. War for the House of Night brews, shattering everything that Aeldia thought she knew about her home. And Rain may understand her more than anyone. But their blossoming attraction could be her downfall, in a kingdom where nothing is more deadly than love. So that is the premise, and if you read a lot of romantasy, I'm pretty sure most of you read this one. It's very popular and I really liked it. I thought Aeldia was very intelligent, and it's not like other stories where she's powerful, but she's a really tiny girl and everything, you know. She actually trained most of her life to be powerful and to not die, so I really liked it. I was a little on the fence about Rain at first, but he grew on me, and then, in the end, he broke my heart. So I have to read the second book to see what happens. Even though I liked Aeldia, she sometimes was a little dumb, like, girl, just think a little and see what's weird. But overall, I really liked the tournament and that whole thing, and I'm very intrigued about the war that's coming in the second book. I'm very curious about some characters and how the cliffhanger develops into the story of the second book, because I was not satisfied with that ending. I was like, Aeldia, please listen to the goddess of death because she's telling you the truth, but that would be a bad ending for the couple, so I understand that. But the rational part in me was screaming at Aeldia. And if you reach this part I'm talking about, you'll know. I think the previous book I read with Deathly Trials was Akotar, so it was a very refreshing book for me, especially because I don't read a lot of romantasy. I'm just kinda getting into it now. So, to relate to what I said before about the Goddess of Death, I chose a quote by her, and it says, "A dead lover can never break your heart. It's profound, it's deep, and it's true." And now let's do the final book review that is for Love Me, Stalk Me. So this book follows Izzy. She's an overworked department store manager with a boyfriend that doesn't give her love. So her best friend convinces her to just download this AI boyfriend app to fill the emotional void that her real boyfriend is living. And Izzy decides to give it a shot. She's just venting her problems and pouring her deepest, dirtiest fantasies to a harmless chatbot named Caleb. But in reality, she's talking to Callahan Knight, her store's brooding new head of security and a guy that fell head over heels for Izzy, and he's not letting her go. Because he's been listening, and he knows that a woman like Izzy deserves to be cherished by someone who truly knows her worth, and he'll do anything to be that man. So when Izzy finally sees her boyfriend for who he really is and the danger that she's been caught up in, Cal is ready to protect her no matter the cost. I wasn't expecting much about this story. I really like stalker romances, and I loved this one. It had the rom-com humor like Lights Out by Navessa Hallan, but it still has some dark moments. Not between the main characters, so don't worry about it. And actually, aside from the stalking, that's a very big red flag, Callahan is everything. He's charming, he's attentive, he's so perfect. Besides stalker, of course. Izzy was such a precious girl. She's curvy, if you like to read books with a curvy MC, and she's awesome. But she's a little naive when it comes to her boyfriend. But she's just reaching for love deep down, even when she just knows that she's looking for it in the wrong person. So, with no expectations, I loved this book. So now let's go back to the beginning and update my initial setup with these books. And then we can move on to my manga journal and also update that one. So to start, I'm just filling in these spaces with the book covers and the star ratings. This is one of my favorite spreads in this reading journal. I just love to see all the book covers all at once, and since half of it is almost full, it looks so good. With these May books, I read officially half of my goal for the year, so we are at 20 out of 40. This month I read 2 paperback books, 3 audiobooks and 1 ebook, so I colored in beige for the paperbacks, green for the audiobooks and dark brown for the ebook. The Serpent and Wings of Night was in my maybe next, or the most common term TBR, so I can check that one as read. Then we have my yearly challenges, and Adventures in Aeldia would likely be here, but oh well. Then for the alphabet challenge, I filled in 2 more letters. There are L for Love Me Stalk Me and O for One Dark Window. In the Rainbow Challenge, I filled in 3 colors, blue for book lovers, lilac for Powerless, and grey for 2 Twisted Crowns. This last one I'm not sure about, but if I read a book that is more grey in the cover, I will put it on top and cover this one. I completed 3 prompts from the bingo. There are vampire story, number on the title, and did not finish. For the Year of Goober Challenge, I chose the prompt A Blend of Genres, that is the Nini start, and I chose the Serpent and Wings of Night for this one because it is a romantasy. I can update my series tracker with 3 more series, the Sheperd King Duet that I completed this month, Crowns of Nyaxia that is for the Serpent and Wings of Night, and Obsessively Yours that is for Love Me, Stalk Me. Then I read the third book in the Chestnut Springs, and then the one I'm putting across on top is the third book in the Into Darkness trilogy, that is Game On by Navessa Allen, and I did not finish this one. Then before we put Game On my DNF list, let's update my book catalog. This is like a mini review that I do for every book I read, and I like to include the book cover, the star and spice rating, the title, the author, the series it's part of, the format I read, the genre, the number of pages, the year it was published, the dates I started and finished, and finally a little space for a quick and general review. And this is useful because if in the future I want to reread a book, I can always go back to these catalogs and see if I liked the book, if I didn't like it, or if I had anything to point out, instead of having to flip through the decorated spreads and read my extensive paragraphs. Okay, and now let's add Game On to the graveyard. And well, I didn't love the second book in the trilogy, that is Caught Up, because of the Play Club. It's just that public smut scenes aren't for me, that's not my thing, and that book actually gave me the hick on the end, because I think it was a scene on the club that the main couple was having their relations in front of her friends. So that was weird for me, and as soon as I saw that the Play Club was having its thing again in the plot of the third book, it was an instant no for me. I knew I wasn't going to enjoy it, so I just decided to stop early on and enjoy another book. So unfortunately, the second and the third book in this series were a very big no for me, and I'm heartbroken because I loved Lights Out, that is the first on the Into Darkness series. And now let's move on to my manga journal. In May I read 7 manhwas, but I DNF'd one of them. So currently I read 38 of my 108 reading goal. Then I read the 5 manhwa of the Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, which I'm currently trying to make a collection out of it, so I can check that box. And I finished the Alabasta arc of One Piece, and I'm currently watching the Skypiea arc. So with that we can update my monthly statistics. I didn't read any mangas, but I read 1 manhwa, 6 manhwas, I watched 68 episodes, and this includes 60 episodes of One Piece and the 8 episodes of the series of Campus, and with that I completed 1 season. Then I can write the titles of the manhwas I read this month and put a cross on their format and if I DNF'd any of them. And don't worry, I'm going to tell you later what I actually read this month. Next we have the same type of spread that I have on my reading journal with all the book covers, and so I just have to put the covers here and color in the star ratings. Moving on, we have my monthly cover page, and here I usually do the same theme that I do on the reading journal, just to keep the months cohesive across both journals. And also, it's easier because I already have everything on my desk. So this month I read Candy Yum Yum, and I gave it 3.5 stars. The art was really good, but the plot was silly and full of miscommunication. Then we have Relationship with God. I gave it 4 stars because even though the title is weird, the plot was actually really good and interesting, but I didn't really love the art style. Next we have Nerd Bride. I gave it 4 stars because it had the perfect main characters and art style, but it was so short, it ended too quickly and skipped the best parts. Zero at the Bone I gave 4.5 stars, and I'll talk about it later when I do my collage for it. Next, it's My Unexpected Roommate, and I gave it 3.5 stars. The plot was good, the art style wasn't my favorite, and even though the characters were green flags all the way, it wasn't anything worth remembering. And then we have The Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, the volume 5, and I gave it 5 stars as always. And I DNF'd effing my ex's new lover because it was weird and it was moving too fast without any explanation. So now we are doing the collage for Zero at the Bone. I decided to just do collages for the mangas or manhwas that I really like or the ones that I want to remember, so this is one of them. So after witnessing a mob hit, Surgeon Jack Francisco is put into protective custody to keep him safe until he can testify. A hitman known only as D is blackmailed into killing Jack, but when he tracks him down, his wary conscience won't allow him to murder an innocent man. Finding in each other an unlikely ally, Jack and D are soon on the run from shadowy enemies. Forced to work together to survive, the two men forge a bond that ripens into unexpected passion. Jack sees the wounded soul beneath Dee's cold and detached exterior, and Dee finds in Jack the person who can help him reclaim the man that he once was. As the day of Jack's testimony approaches, he and Dee find themselves not only fighting for their lives, but also fighting for their future, a future together. As you can see, it's an amazing story, and I really like the raw and deep emotions that were in this one. The art wasn't my favorite, but I think it suits this type of story, so overall it was amazing and I really need to read more manhwas from this author. Next we have The Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, and this volume focuses more on the story of Xiao Qin Cheng. This is the one with the white clothes, Song Daozang, that is the one with the dark clothes, and A Qing, that is the girl. And I'm really sorry for butchering all the names. So the story of this collection focuses on Wei Wuxian and Lan Zan, but in this volume they come across A Qing, which then shows her past, and this is where the two men enter. This story was so tragic and sad. I didn't remember seeing this in the donghua at all, but I know it's there, but I didn't remember, and it broke my heart into a million pieces once again, because of this hopeful character named Xue Yang. He's a bad man. So I can't say anything else because of spoilers in case you want to read this or watch the donghua, so I decided to focus this collage on my favorite man and of course my smart girl A Qing, because she suffers so much. And with that, it's time for the final flip through of both journals. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's really long, but I had so much to put in here, so this is the best I could do. Anyways, if you enjoyed it, like and subscribe and comment down below a pink heart emoji to let me know you watched it till the end. This month was so good, both in books and manhwas. I was really excited to do the book review pages with all the decoration and all my ideas, because that's my favorite part of the month and I look forward to do it every single month. That's why I love having a reading journal, and that's why it is my favorite journal. It's a place for me to get creative, use stationery that I can't include on a bullet journal theme, and a place for me to just pour my feelings and thoughts onto the pages. Let me know in the comments if you read any of these books before, or if you have the same opinions as me, especially the controversial ones, and also if you disagree, because that's also valid. I have so many ideas for this summer in the reading journal. As you know, summer is my least favorite season and I really dislike the heat and the high temperatures. I really suffer with that. So I'm trying to make some fun reading challenges and fun spreads in the reading journal to help me focus more on the things that I like and try to pass the hot season more easily. Anyways, I hope you guys have a lovely day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!